introduce the moderator. Let me have Matt go over the rules, the big picture of the rules. Matt?
Okay, so we have a lot of great questions. Some of your questions will be asked, and some of the questions will probably already be covered in Phil's one-on-one with the candidates before. However, if your question wasn't asked, or if it's going to be something that we need additional information on, then Phil is going to call your name, you're going to stand up, I'm going to go out to you and hand you the mic. It's not a time for you to speak or give a speech, it's a time for you to ask the question and then hand the mic back to me. If you don't hand the mic back to me, then you got to deal with Tom Glick over here. So those are the rules. And if we don't ask you a question and it didn't get covered, it's possible that Richard gave us the hook.
Okay, let me introduce Phil Schuman, Channel 11 Fox News. He's going to be the moderator this evening, and he has done this before with us, and hopefully we'll be able at the end of the evening to understand the differences between the various candidates. Phil?
Thanks, Richard. All right, let's get started. Basically, each candidate's going to make a self-introduction. They're going to do an opening statement. We're going to do about 15 minutes of Q&A. Then we're going to get to they're going to get to question each other, which is always an interesting wrinkle. And then your questions, closing statement, and we should be out of here by like midnight. All right. So, does anybody watch local news anymore on TV? Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. And you already know this, but all you guys make a difference because we did some research, and 4 years ago, 200 votes separated the candidates in the runoff election. Less than 200 votes put David Rio in the election. So every vote in here matters, and your kids' votes matter, and your friends' votes matter. So we're just going to go right down the line in order, and we're going to ask each one of you to maybe do a 1-minute introduction, your name, your qualifications, your background, very briefly, and then we'll go from there.
You got time. All right.
Bob's the timer here.
Okay.
Got it.
Thank you, Phil. My name is David Rue. I am your council member, and I am seeking re-election, and it's great to be here at SOHA along with all the neighborhood council as well. And if you guys could remember, 4.5 years ago, I ran as a reformer. I ran as the outsider. I was on this stage with 13 other people, if you guys could recall. And I just want to take this opportunity to reintroduce myself in case many have forgotten, especially with homelessness being the major crisis of our day. If you could recall, before I ran for office 4.5 years ago, I worked for 6 years at the second largest mental health hospital. And I say the second largest mental health hospital because our largest mental health hospital is our jail system. We were also the largest homeless outreach provider in South LA. And before that, I worked 6 years for LA County Supervisor Yvonne Burke as her social services deputy, working on foster care, homelessness, mental health, HIV/AIDS, health. So homelessness is not something that I've come across lately. It's something I've worked on for over 16 years, and something that is a passion issue of mine, and something that we will be talking about throughout this debate today.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Yes. Hi, my name is Nithya Raman. I am a mother of twin preschoolers, and my husband and my family, we live in Silver Lake, which is on the other end of this district. I have a master's in urban planning from MIT and an undergraduate degree from Harvard. I've spent most of my career working on urban poverty issues. I spent a number of years in India working with people who lived in slums and informal settlements there, who didn't have access to basic services like running water and toilets. I've done a lot of work on homelessness in Los Angeles as well. And this past year, I headed Time's Up's entertainment affiliate, which is the organization that came out of Me Too activism in Hollywood and beyond. And I just wanted to take this one moment to say, I'm an immigrant to America. I moved here with my family when I was 6 years old. This is the last candidate forum that we're having. I just wanted to say thank you. When we first moved here, I never thought I'd be allowed to run for office here. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Hi, it's so nice to be back here with you all again. My name is Sarah Kate Levy, and I am running for this seat because when I moved here 20 years ago, I moved here because rent was affordable. I know. And that allowed me to stay here. I worked in TV, I went back to school, I got a writing degree at USC, I have my undergraduate degree from Yale, and I became a WGA screenwriter. I met a wonderful guy, we're raising our 4 children in this city, and I am running today because I want to ensure that they have the same opportunities here that I had when I came. We are seeing too many families one crisis away from rock bottom. We are seeing too many people die in our streets. We are watching too many trees crumble around us with no plan to replace them, and I know our communities are ready for better. I have spent the last 3 years running the National Women's Political Caucus, LA Metro, helping other women run for office in this city and this county, and that is how I know how this city operates and how we can do better for our communities. Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much everybody for coming out tonight. I am Susan Collins, and just so you know, I am a write-in candidate, which means that you will not see my name on the ballot. You will have to actually go to the CD4 at City Council, select write-in, and then take the extra step of either typing in or writing in my name. Many of you already know me because I've been an active participant in this association and the neighborhood council for a few years now. I've been a resident of Los Angeles for over 35 years. Over 13 of those have been here, where I've raised my son and I care for my mother that has a mental disability. It is because of my experiences raising a son and dealing with a parent with mental disabilities that I knew I needed to find solutions for the homelessness that actually worked. So I have toured and interviewed several nonprofit housing and care providers that deal with the homeless. And it's with that knowledge and a passion to improve our community that I've decided to run for City Council. And I thank you all so much for coming.
So now, you did a little bit of it in your introduction, but we're going to go ahead and consider this an opening statement. So 2 minutes each, and since you have the mic, we'll just go back down in the opposite order. So 2 minutes of continuing what you were talking about and why you're running for this office.
Perfect. So again, as I mentioned, I have consulted with several nonprofit providers that deal with housing and care for the homeless community. And I did this in an effort to be able to present ideas to our community, for the homeless community, that actually worked and would also increase the safety and security of the surrounding community. What I found is that programs that don't work for the community also invariably do not provide effective care for the community that they're supposed to serve. And the reason that these programs don't work and don't provide effective care for those people is really summed up in 3 words: low barrier entry. Now, what most people don't know is that the reasons that the bridge housing system is a complete failure, which they are, regardless of what anybody here will tell you, is that because the residents are not required to participate in any lifestyle changes or actually required to participate in programs of rehabilitation. So what that means is that when they're not required to do so, many don't, and they bring with them the destructive lifestyles or circumstances that led them into homelessness in the first place. And those habits follow them into the communities. But I have a 7-point plan to address that. It mirrors very much former Assemblyman Mike Gatto's California Compassionate Intervention Act. And by investing in people rather than property and implementing programs of accountability, we can provide targeted assistance and care to people in need while also restoring our community's safety and security. We can clean our streets from needles and human waste, and we can make them we can provide representation for you, not just special interests. Thank you.
I am running for this seat because I am worried about the city I am leaving for my children, about the planet I am leaving for their children. From the 53% bump in homelessness in this district over 1 year, from the catastrophic rise in the cost of housing, from the safety of our streets, to the state of our parks and our urban forests, our worsening air quality, climate change being upon us. These are the things my husband and I talk about in our home at night. They're the things we talk about with our friends at the park, at Little League games. They're the things I talk to with my neighbors at the grocery store about, but I can't help but wonder if City Council is having a completely different conversation. I do not see our council moving to address the needs of people trying to care for our families, run our businesses, and struggling to stay in this city that we love. I will fight for solutions to our homelessness crisis. I will fight for affordable housing for everyone in this city. I will fight for safe streets. I will fight for robust transit. I will fight so that we have parks in every neighborhood to increase the quality of our lives. I believe that working on housing and transit and trees is a responsible way to bring jobs to this city, to grow our economy, to take care of climate change. And I know that our district is ready for this change because I have lived in this community for 20 years. I have been knocking on doors in our community for 18 months. And I hear consistently that we need better for our neighborhoods. I have spent the bulk of this campaign here in Sherman Oaks. We have been throwing 2 to 3 events here every week. Our office is at Ventura and Van Nuys, and I invite you to come with us and get involved because I know what we can bring to our neighborhoods can be better than what we have now. Thank you.
I wanted to share a little bit about why I decided to run for this seat. I worked at City Hall briefly in 2014. At that time, there were 23,000 people experiencing homelessness in Los Angeles. Now there's almost 37,000, a staggering increase in just a few years. But even then, when there were 23,000, that to me felt like a real crisis. And what I saw at City Hall in terms of their response to it was extremely disappointing. Across departments, there was no discussion on how we were actually going to work together at the city to end the crisis, to get people off of the streets. The city was already spending more than $100 million on homelessness at that time, but the bulk of that money was being spent on putting homeless individuals in jail for 3 nights and then releasing them. A policy which is both unnecessarily cruel and completely ineffective, as you can see by the growth in homeless encampments over the last few years. I left City Hall. I was very disappointed. I had kids, so I took some time off from the workforce. But when I was at home, I saw that in my own neighborhood, there were people living in areas where there had never been homeless individuals before. And so me and my neighbors got together. We were all on neighborhood council in different neighborhoods, and we started a homeless coalition where we went out and we got to know people experiencing homelessness. We understood the reasons why they were on the street, and we also tried to give them the tools to get out of homelessness. And what we realized when we looked at the city was that we had not created a system through which when people are experiencing homelessness here, they are able to quickly and efficiently get off of the streets. All of the money that we're spending on this issue at the city is not being used well. It's not being used effectively. And I want to just say that I ran because it's not just on this issue. It's on every issue where the council has power. And I decided to run because every time I turned to the council for help, I heard that their hands were tied and they couldn't do anything. I'm here to tell you that we can do so much, and I want to do it for you. Thank you.
You know, I am one of 2 immigrants on the Los Angeles City Council, and I've lived pretty much my entire life, almost 40 years in Los Angeles. And I am the first Korean American ever elected to the Los Angeles City Council, and the second Asian American ever. And 5 years ago, believe it or not, it's been 5 years, I ran as that reformer, as the outsider, as the underdog candidate. I was literally the David and Goliath, and no one gave me a chance in hell. The only people who supported me was you, the community, and in particular Sherman Oaks, who took me to victory. Woohoo! And together, we started to begin building trust in City Hall, create transparency, and build a brighter Los Angeles for all future Angelinos. But today we are faced with the biggest crisis of our time, and that's homelessness. And you know, you're going to hear a lot of ideas and a lot of solutions here tonight, and you're going to learn a lot more about it. But I want you to know one thing. There is no one person or one idea that's gonna solve homelessness. Because if that was the case, it would have been solved by now. It's gonna take all of us, community members, business leaders, elected officials from all levels of government coming together to solve this crisis. And that's what we did for the past 4.5 years, working together to tackle homelessness and every other issue that is affecting your community, big and small. And that's why I'm seeking re-election. That's why I'm seeking your vote, so that we can continue to build on everything that we've done together to tackle issues of homelessness and every other thing that comes our way. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So now I'm going to spend a few minutes with some questions. Let me just start with you, David. First name basis, is that all right? So how can you stand here and talk about what you've accomplished when it comes to homelessness when probably everybody in this room thinks it's worse than ever before?
Thank you, Phil.
45 seconds, theoretically.
Together, we've built 8 homeless housing projects in Council District 4, all throughout Council District 4. It's about working together. And you know what? 4.5 years ago, when I tried to talk about homelessness, and I tried to talk about homelessness because of my background, and I saw it coming up, building up, but no one wanted to hear about it. It was out of sight, out of mind. Today, I see the light at the end of the tunnel, because why? You can't go anywhere but talk about homelessness, but the difference is now people are saying, Councilmember, I don't want to call the police.
Yeah, but you're not answering the question. My question is, how can you stand here and talk about the progress you've made?
So, thank you, Phil, for that follow-up. I am very, very proud of my work. We have 8 projects. All throughout Council District 4, if you go to my website, we have close to 600 beds coming into line. We have more bridge housing projects, mayor's bridge home projects, than any top for any other district. And we are working together to identify sites, to start building. Because you know what? It's about providing the housing first model. Go to my website, 3-prong approach, learn more about it, because it's about first providing the housing and the services so we can start getting out of this hole.
All right. Nithya, you mentioned the money that's being spent isn't being used efficiently.
Yeah.
Where is your expertise to come into City Hall as an outsider and tell them how to use it more efficiently?
Say that again? Where is my expertise?
What would you do to use it more efficiently, and what insight do you have in that area?
Okay, so let's talk about how we're providing services to people who are experiencing homelessness. We're paying tens of millions of dollars for service provision, right? So we have outreach workers that go out to encampments. Right now, people who are outreach workers, it's a volume game. You are evaluated on how many contacts you make with people who are experiencing homelessness. What I'm proposing, what I've laid out in my plan, which is on my website, is to hold people accountable for providing services. So you have outreach workers and mental health caseworkers stationed in every neighborhood. They know every homeless individual in that neighborhood by name, and they're held accountable for how many people they move through the process of getting housed and getting into services. That's how you change how we spend money here, and that's how you hold the city accountable for the money that it's spending on this issue.
All right. So Sarah, being homeless is not a crime. So what's the problem if someone's camped out on your sidewalk in front of your house?
The number one problem with having people sleeping on our sidewalks tonight is that we cannot provide service to them while they are there. I am proposing the most efficient way to use the service money that we already have by the sales taxes we voted to put towards this problem by setting up safe parking and safe campsites with bathrooms and showers and outreach there, so that our overstretched service workers have sites where they can visit people who are stably in place, and so we can clear our sidewalks, not because we're trying to criminalize people, but because we need safe sidewalks so that we can walk down the street, and because small business needs our streets clear so that they can continue to open their doors and operate and generate the sales tax that get poured back into service.
Where is your safe camping?
Okay, so Susan, let me follow up with Susan.
Where's your safe camping? I'd like to know where the safe camping is.
Well, there are a couple of safe parking spots.
But she specifically says safe
Safe camping?
Okay, yeah.
Do you want to address that? Sure.
So right now, we have in this county 18 million parking spots for 5 million cars. We have municipal parking lots, we have library parking lots, we have park parking lots. Those are not campsites, those are parking sites. When you have a park close at night, you can have a safe parking lot, go in. When the park opens, people drive out. That's how it operates on faith campuses and churches and synagogues across the city. For campsites, we should be grabbing back municipal park sites, which right now should be prioritizing servicing people and getting our sidewalks clean, rather than finding us an extra place to park a car. If we can keep our sidewalks clean, that is a priority, and we should be focusing on doing that now.
So let me move over to Susan. You heard that term service resistant. A certain percentage of the homes, maybe I've heard as high as 85% is service resistant. So you have a shelter for them, they don't want to go.
Reverend Bayless would actually debate that.
All right,
Would
well,
tell
my
you
question-
that 100%.
All right. You're talking about Andy Bales from the Indian Rescue Mission downtown. So if you have a homeless person who refuses help, what do?
So that's why it's very important that we all really advocate for former Assemblyman Mike Gatto's California Compassionate Intervention Act. The beauty of this is that while there are several laws that are actually already on the book, but we just simply don't enforce them. If you see somebody having sex on the sidewalk, or if they're defecating on the sidewalk, that is technically a crime. Now, we don't want to arrest people as a punitive measure for not having the mental capacity to know that this is inappropriate behavior. However, when those people are service resistant, we can use those as a tool to get them into services. We can use that to bring them in, triage them, and then decide, is this mental illness, is it addiction, what is the problem, and what is the appropriate care that you need, and we can provide that for you. It gives us the tools to motivate otherwise treatment-resistant people.
Okay. All right, we're going to have questions from the audience at home, so we can spend the whole night obviously talking about this. Let me ask Nithya, do you have a car?
Do I have a
Do you drive?
I don't like to drive, but yeah, I do.
Yeah, you don't like to drive because of traffic.
Yeah.
Metro's contemplating several options for mass transit through the Sepulveda Pass.
Yeah.
I mean, how much of what you would do in office would address traffic, making it better, and what's your position on the mass transit options?
That we have right now and
Yeah.
for on the table. I think that we need to increase investment in public transit in the Valley. I feel like we've done a lot of investment in central Los Angeles and building out public transit lines, and I think it's really high time that we invested a lot more in transit here. And I think if we can invest in transit, we can actually reduce traffic on the streets. Part of the reason why we have so much traffic on the streets right now is because there are no options to getting into your car. If you're walking on a sidewalk, if you're bicycling, if you're trying to take a bus, it's almost impossible because a bus never comes. And I feel like if we can start building out real options for people that includes robust underground trains, connecting the Valley to the rest of LA, and robust measures that protect pedestrians and protect cyclists, we can actually reduce traffic in Los Angeles.
All right. For Sarah, what makes you think you can do this job?
Right now, we are looking at a district with a 53% bump in homelessness. We are looking at streets where people are continuing to die. We are watching our trees wither around us. Experience has gotten us here. We need people in these seats who are trying to raise families, trying to care for their aging parents, trying to make their house payments, trying to make their small businesses survive in a city environment which is painfully difficult to do business in. We need city council members who ride the buses we're talking about. We need city council members who are dependent upon our trains. That's why I think I can do this. I'm living the experience in this city that people are asking for help and service for.
Can I ask Susan the same question?
Absolutely. So I am more than qualified for this job because I live here, I work here, I experience this, and I gotta say about everyone else on this panel, I love everyone on this panel. They're really great people, but I gotta tell you, I'm the only one that has common sense. I am the only one that is willing to call it out and go, look, we all want to help the homeless, but at some point, we deserve to be able to take our kids to the park. My mother is confined to a wheelchair, and can I tell you, She also has a mental disability. So can I tell you, wheeling her through feces and urine and then having her touch those wheels and then pick up her food, you know what? At some point, common sense has got to step in. I am a single mom and I caretake for a mother with dementia and I work. I'm a multitasker like nobody else. I can get this job done.
Same question?
Well, you can answer this however you want, but my question is basically, what do you point to over the past term that you think qualifies you to be reelected?
Thank you. I think proof is in the pudding. And basically every single pledge from 4.5 years ago, I accomplished. Whether it's the developer ban, banning developers from contributing to campaigns, discretionary funds task force, passing the BMO, baseline maximization ordinance, and the baseline hillside ordinance 6 months within when we got into office. Rebuilding our urban forestry department that was decimated. I'm the one not only rebuilding and refunding it, but creating a whole tree master plan. Refixing our infrastructure, making sure that the tax dollars goes back into the streets to rebuild your infrastructure. The party house ban, children's savings account, hate crimes legislation, homeless housing, you name it, the list is long. Every single thing we talked about doing together, I accomplished with your help.
All right, let's move into the
Oh, right, you didn't let her.
well, I'm not asking everybody the same question, but if you feel strongly about that, sure. I mean, go ahead. You want to talk about why you're qualified to hold that seat? What I want to do is, we do something a little bit different here, is that you get to ask each other a question. We already got the common sense insult. We're trying to keep it more polite. You want to go first on the end? You get to ask one of the other three a question.
Oh, great. Okay,
Less than
perfect.
45 seconds.
So, thank you. Of course, I have a question for David. David, do the names Timothy Reagan, Lisa Pham, or Ed Schilling mean anything to you?
Is that the question? No?
Like a, no? Well, can I,
No.
no? Let me tell you why they should. They are all business owners and employees that contacted your office on numerous occasions after yet another one of the successful bridge housing developments opened 1 block from their businesses. And almost immediately, they saw an increase in homeless in the area, and it escalated so badly that they were unable to conduct businesses because of the amount of their business, because of the amount of feces,
All right,
tents,
so the question
and urine.
is what?
The question was, does he know those names? He should know them. They called his office relentlessly.
Well, I mean, he can't know the name of every person.
So are they
When somebody calls
You're
your
asking about
office
the issue.
over and over
You're
and over again,
Are
no,
they
he
Sher-
should know their names.
Are they Sherman Oaks residents?
They're district court residents. They are right down the street from your McAdam facility. They even call the news crews out. That's how bad it was. So he should know their names.
Okay. So I'm not sure which area she's talking about.
McAdam, just south of McAdam. Just south of the Bridge McAdam Bridge facility.
LGBT Center? Are we talking about the LGBT Center?
Yeah, so they would be north.
Okay, so
south.
I am very proud. From the 8 projects, the LGBT Center is the flagship program, not just for Los Angeles, for the nation, where it's one of the few programs that exists. More importantly, anyone who calls my office, we have a policy where we try to respond within 24 to 48 hours. Not necessarily with the answer, but let you know that we got your message and we will get back to you.
No one responded.
And we have track record of every single email and phone call. It is probably the case, they might have not heard what they wanted to hear, but I wanted you to know that we, as you know, every Mondays, Thursdays,
They call
anybody
it
who wants a meeting with me, including you, Susan, I met with you personally on several occasions, and all of your neighbors as well. So I have an open door policy. Feel free to call my office schedule. I can't guarantee that you'll have a meeting immediately, but we will meet with you.
All right, let's give the mic to Nithya. Would you like to ask one of the other
Yeah,
three?
I also have a question for Councilmember. So for Councilmember, you've made campaign finance reform one of your central issues. And we go through all of the candidates' donation lists. And so does the LA Times, and the LA Times found that despite the fact that you said you wouldn't take money from developers, that you ended up taking money from 17 developers and had to return it. And then last week it came out that you also had taken money from 2 slumlords that were profiled in a KPCC piece. And I also found that when I looked through the list, a developer named Jeff Katofsky didn't donate, but his wife donated, his two kids donated, his 2 employees and their wives donated, and his personal assistant donated. I'm just curious about how this money squares with your pledge to take real estate money out of politics in Los Angeles, which I really believe our campaign's not taking a single corporate dollar or any money from the real estate industry or the fossil fuel industry.
So, I am the only candidate, when I ran for office 4.5 years ago, who swore off developer contributions. Not only that, all throughout my 4.5 years, I promised I would not take developer contributions, and it is voluntary. Me and my staff go through and comb through all of our donations to make sure that we abide by our own pledge, voluntary pledge, and I ask everybody in the audience to look through the same, as well as the press, to help me out, because you know what, I have close to 3,000 donations, and I have nobody to ask. Nobody to ask for help or ask for reference. So you know what I did? What I promised 4.5 years ago, I introduced legislation simply that said, if you have a development project I'm gonna vote on, then you cannot donate. If you remember 4.5 years ago, everybody laughed at me. No one would even second the motion. No one would even consider it and said, this guy's naive. He doesn't know what he's talking about. This is a crazy idea. I persisted, I worked hard, 4.5 years, a couple of more tries, FBI investigations helped out a lot as well, but in 4.5 years, I got it passed. But you know what those same people say now? They say it doesn't go far enough, it has loopholes. You know what, it doesn't go far enough. It does have some loopholes, and I try to close those loopholes the same day I passed that legislation, and again, no one would second it from my city council. But I want you to know this is how we're gonna change the system at City Hall. 4.5 years ago, people said, pipe dream, impossible. Now they say, it doesn't go far enough. I consider that a win, and with your help, we'll go even further.
Sarah's turn.
I also have a question for Councilmember.
Do I get to ask everyone?
I want to open this up a little wider than the developer ban. You have characterized yourself as a reformer in general. But as Nithya referenced, you've raised more than $100,000 for your campaign from developers and real estate interests. You have raised more than $500,000 in behested payments, which is more than any council member ever. And in this campaign, you've raised more than $1 million, which is twice the spending limit, and then taken $151,000 in our taxpayer money in matching funds that is meant to go to candidates who are new to the game. How are we supposed to believe that you are not saying one thing while doing another?
As far as those matching funds, thanks for bringing that up, because I increased those matching funds so all of us, all of you on this stage, could have more of a level playing field. I remember as a first-time candidate how hard it was, so I made it easier for people to run for office and get matching funds. As a matter of fact, I am so proud of all the community support I received. The first time I ran, if you guys can recall, in 2 elections, primary and general, I had over 9,000 individual contributions, average donation $110. This time around, I'm so proud that close to 85% of all my donors, close to 3,000 people, are all from City of Los Angeles, County of Los Angeles. And I have more under $100 donors than all my opponents combined.
Actually, how would you do
So-
that?
Yeah, those
So-
are
That
unaggregated.
information-
So-
information is not trackable.
You want me to answer that too? Actually, if you go to the city ethics site and you pull it down, all
No, they're
donations,
aggregated under $99.
if you go to the city ethics website, and I encourage everyone to go, because I want you to look at my donations and see if you see something out of place, let me know and I'll return it. Okay, but if you go to the city ethics website and you pull it down, every single donation comes out, and as a matter of fact, the aggregate is anything over $100 needs to be reported. Anything under $100 is up to the campaign. And I think a lot of my opponents have also shown under 100, so we've also shown that as well. And if you look at the aggregate, it tells you how much is aggregated and how many people there are.
All right, now you get to ask, you gotta pick one of the 3 questions.
Okay, Phil.
All Or you can ask one question and see which one of the three wants to answer.
Well, you know, homelessness is the most central topic, and I think that's what needs to be discussed. So when it comes to homeless housing, back in 2018, I worked with this community, the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association, the Neighborhood Council, the Sherman Oaks Vision Committee, to not just talk about homelessness, but start talking about where we could build homeless housing, how we're going to get out of this crisis. And obviously it was very, very controversial. So I want to ask Nithya, if you are able to pick a site, a location, a specific location in Sherman Oaks, where would you pick that location? Give me specific.
For
Sherman Oaks.
So I've actually talked about how we pick sites for homeless housing on my website. And one of the things that I think that we could be doing is actually picking smaller sites. I think there's a real opportunity across Los Angeles to have resources that are sited across every neighborhood in the city. And if they're in every neighborhood in the city, that means they don't have to be 200-bed shelters. They don't have to be big, scary places for people to go to. They don't have to be places that are a community nuisance for others around. If there's a center like this in every neighborhood, it can actually become a community asset, like the one that we've built in Silver Lake, where people come in, they can take a shower, they can talk to a case manager. 7 people were housed in the last 2 weeks from the work that we did in that community access center that we as volunteers did, and nobody in the neighborhood really even knows that that access center is there because it's small. And I would say it wouldn't be just one site in Sherman Oaks. It would be a couple of different sites in different parts of Sherman Oaks. It would be sites all over the city, and they would be really small places.
And I really appreciate that, and that's exactly what we did with the Sherman Oaks community in 2018. So my specific question was, what location? You said multiple sites, multiple microsites.
I don't have access to city records and maps to find out where, you know.
Okay.
All right, so she doesn't want to give a specific location.
I mean, I would do
All right.
that work when I was.
All right, last question for me, and then we'll open it up, is so David, you know, you ran as the reformer, the outsider, even though you worked in the county for a long time.
6 years, yes.
What was your biggest shock, your biggest revelation once you got on the inside about how this whole operation works that you didn't realize?
The biggest shock was, you know, and even in the county, there were 5 county board of supervisors who is responsible for all mental health services and all these services that we're all talking about. But in the city of Los Angeles, there are 15 council members and 14 other colleagues. And the harder shock was, it was easier to get to 3 when you're at the board of supervisors, because you just need 3 votes to get anything passed. But in the city of Los Angeles, you need to get to 8. So no matter how great the idea is, no matter how great the plan is, no matter how much your community wants certain things, you have to get 7 other colleagues to come on board with you. And in many cases, it's an easy slam dunk. Other cases could be very controversial, and this is where you have to put in the work, put in the support, build the collaboration to get things done.
All right, thank you. All right, we ready for some questions from the group? Where is Kim Hopkins? I want you to make the point that you made in your question about it's not just housing, it's not just affordable housing, but it also has to do with drug treatment, alcohol treatment, for the homeless population. Matt's going to come over to the microphone.
Hi. Thank you all for coming here tonight. So I've read in several places now some facts about the homeless population in Los Angeles that I was hoping to share.
All right, we know the population. Just ask your question.
Okay. I just want to, just real quickly, that the vast majority I've read are addicted to meth or other drugs and have mental psychiatric diseases such as schizophrenia, and many of them actually refuse treatment. There's some word I cannot pronounce called anosognia, a condition where it's actually in dementia patients as well as psychiatric patients where they refuse treatment because they don't actually know something's wrong with them. And of course we would never not treat someone with dementia who was refusing treatment. That would be cruel. So my question is, I've read that Proposition 47 turned drug possession into a misdemeanor and SB 640 ended involuntary commitment of people. So I don't understand how affordable housing is going to fix this problem. It seems to me that affordable housing, I don't see how this would fix this. You're just increasing the problem by inviting more people to California, where our laws are not prosecuting the drug addiction, and we aren't able to commit people who have psychiatric problems. So that's my question. How is affordable housing fixing this?
What would be the best way, Richard or Matt? Do you want each candidate to do a brief response to that? You want to just go right down?
30 seconds.
I would encourage you to go to my website to see about the three-prong, but that is exactly what prong 2 is about. The reason why affordable housing helps homeless individuals is because right now there are many individuals who want help. And as a matter of fact, there are many who are alcohol and/or substance abusers, but the new reality of the new homelessness is there are 721,000 people in the county of LA who are economically unstable. We are seeing more and more economic homeless because they're spending more than half their paychecks on rent, and they're 1 or 2 paychecks away from becoming homeless. Was that 45 seconds?
It was 30.
It's not a 30-second answer to that question.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Try to keep
all right,
it, yeah.
we're good.
I mean, the shorter their answers, the more questions we
Okay.
have, so.
Okay.
So I
Wait till
want.
the lightning round.
That's what we're doing.
I want to talk a little bit about this idea of service resistance, because I do think that in some ways we have designed the system to make it ineffective to help people with mental illness and who are struggling with addiction. So right now, in our service provision landscape, the only time that service providers go out and talk to people, and there was a report at the city that found that this happened more than 75% of the time, the only time that service providers were talking to people who were experiencing homelessness was when they were doing a cleanup. So that means there were police officers there and there were sanitation workers there who were throwing out their stuff. What I'm proposing is a totally different thing. That you actually go out to people, you have an opportunity to build a relationship of trust with someone who has mental illness, and you can get them housed. And in that, the number of service-resistant people really, really drops. I think we can transform the system so that it works.
I'm going to yes and that and add a second piece. Right now, our supportive housing that we all voted for is meant for the people who need the wraparound care that you were talking about. The people who need addiction service, they need mental health care. We have a lot of people who also need that care but don't need supportive housing. I'm a rent-controlled landlord. I have a tenant who has tinfoiled his entire apartment. Because there was affordable housing, he is safe, he keeps himself fed, and he pays his rent. And that didn't cost you $600,000 a unit to do that. My affordable housing kept him off your streets. That's why we need more affordable units in this city for those people who can take care of themselves differently than we do, but do not need extraordinarily expensive care.
In answer to your question directly, our current programs absolutely do not address the issue. That is the problem. That is why we are seeing this problem explode. So all along for the last 4 years, David has been saying that the mentally ill and addiction problem amongst the homeless is somewhere between 20 to 25%. I have said since day one, because I have common sense, that it was way higher than that. Now, when I speak to care providers, they tell me it's somewhere between 80 to 85%. Again, Andy Bayless from the Union Rescue Mission says that number is at 100%. So we have a system designed for people for a 20% population, when in reality, it's almost a 90% problem. I can tell you, with dealing with a mother with dementia, she will look you in your face and say, I don't know what you're doing. I've been doing that all my life. I don't need your help. She cannot feed herself. So putting a roof over her house will not cure that. We absolutely must implement programs of accountability that provide the targeted service and care that people really, genuinely need.
Okay. We're going to move to a different topic. The flight path. I've got like 10 questions, all with the same handwriting. Elsie, Diane, any one of you guys can jump up. David,
Just raise your hand.
Todd Goldberg.
Raise your hand so I can come to
Nice.
one of you. Okay. So why don't you just come over here? So our flight patterns, for those of you who don't know, I don't know what rock you've been under, but our flight patterns have drastically changed in the last year out of Burbank Airport. So that's an issue that is forefront. So you have a question?
I do, thanks.
This is a very specific question, but it has to do with flight path. So recent headlines pointed out that the U.S. Inspector General found the FAA has not effectively overseen Southwest Airlines systems for managing safety risks. And it's really a great concern for our residents in Sherman Oaks and beyond to Blue Lake, et cetera. All over C4, actually. So over 72% of the air traffic out of Burbank is Southwest Airlines. So the question really is, what have you done, what do you plan to do, depending on who's answering the question, to ensure the safety of our constituents from a possible aircraft disaster due to negligence and apparent collusion between Southwest and the FAA?
Who wants to take that one first? Sarah?
Sure.
All right.
How long
Is this
how
something
long
you've
is
been
the
thinking
answer?
about?
Yes, it is actually.
30
How long is the
seconds.
answer? 30 seconds?
No, 45.
45
All right.
seconds.
So today when I was in the Gelsons on Van Nuys, a man came up to me and said, give him hell, Sarah Kate, because he's been coming to my office 3 times a week to talk to me about what is happening with the next-gen flight paths over his community. There are so many community groups working on this right now, and I've had people call me from every single one of them. Our council member has a vote on the task force, and as of tonight, he will have missed 50% of the meetings. I am pledging to you that I will have your back. It is important that I hear your concerns and that I take them to the task force and I take them to the FAA. By condensing 6 flight paths to 1, these communities have been put under pressure they did not expect, and they need somebody to defend them now.
Susan?
Great, thank you. So, this is a great question. You know, I have also been working with the task force, and in fact, I have been splitting my time between the Van Nuys Airport and the Burbank Airport. And while David may have missed 50% of the meetings, which is accurate, I actually haven't seen Sarah at very many of them either, because I have been at almost every single one. And I've been working in close coordination with Quiet Skies over Burbank, Quiet Skies over Studio City, upper LA. So I can tell you that there are easily found solutions in order to reroute those planes. And I know what those routes are because I've worked with them to help establish them. As far as the Southwest goes, Southwest is a major problem. Southwest is refusing to comply with our voluntary restrictions on time. Southwest is a problem, and they need to be addressed aggressively. And we need to take that up with the city of Pasadena and the city of Burbank, because they are the ones making a lot of money off of that airlines. That's not coming to us, but the toxins and the noise, that is coming to us.
Yeah, I think that the next gen issue has been a major issue as I've been on the campaign trail. I mean, I think the solutions are fairly straightforward and clear, and I think all the community groups have articulated them very well. I hope that the lawsuit from my bureau will be successful in changing this, as Phoenix has. But in the meantime, I think what we need is local advocacy that is very clear, that shows up to meetings, that is a loud advocate for the community. I also did just want to say that Southwest is also a donor to David Ruth's campaign.
Thank you. I think the question was safety concerns at Southwest. You know, what I would do, and not next gen. So I would be working already, I'm already working with Senator Feinstein, Senator Kamala Harris, Congressman Adam Schiff, and Brad Sherman to work in the federal government to see what safety concerns there are, because safety is the #1 priority. But however, when it comes to next gen and everything else, I've already been working with all of our elected officials in the federal government. I fought for that lawsuit and made sure that our city attorney, and we put in the budget for that lawsuit and pushed our city attorney to do that lawsuit. We also fought for funding for a consultant, because I don't trust the FAA and I don't trust the folks in the federal government, so we have our own consultants to analyze everything that we're doing. And of course, I even fought, it's not just Burbank Airport, it's also Van Nuys Airport, and I fought because Sherman Oaks had no representation on the Van Nuys Airport Task Force, which I fought recently to get 2 of our members, Tom, who you met earlier, and someone else, as our representative from Sherman Oaks.
Okay, I'm going to paraphrase a question from Barbie Bernardo about developers.
Where's Barbie?
Hi, Barbie. So you all touched on this briefly. Matt, I'm going to ask a slightly different question. Your question was, if you allow me, do you take funding from developers? But my question is, what's so wrong with taking funding from developers? they're stakeholders here, they have a interest, and certainly their viewpoint is as legitimate as any other. And we've heard every politician ever elected say, I may take donations, but it doesn't influence my decision. So you're looking at me very intently. No. Do you want to start this one off? I mean, why is taking money from developers inherently bad?
This city has a really complicated relationship with development. And for that reason, it has been important to me, and I believe also to Nithya, to say we want to take one complicating factor out of this, and we want you to be able to trust us when we are making decisions about how we are going to solve our housing crisis. Because I have made that commitment, because she has made that commitment, we have carefully watched the money coming into our campaigns.
The question is, what's wrong with developer donations?
On its face, I would prefer every individual in this city to give as an individual in this city, because then I can go on the ethics website and see who they are.
Yeah.
I do have concerns about telling individuals they can't give. I have concerns about them going into independent expenditure campaigns, which are much harder to deal with, and giving way more money there. We have an $800 cap on these donations. It would be simpler if candidates said, here's my value statement, and here's what I will and will not
Susan
do.
So, the problem with taking developer donations is because it certainly is a conflict of interest then, right? Then if they have a project that's coming up in your neighborhood and the neighborhood's not exactly on board with it, but it goes through, well, look, we all know that politics has a dirty name, right? So if we can do one step in between us to make that a little cleaner, then we need to do that. And I will go, Matt, say that, you know, when we first did our candidate forum, this question was posed to us again, like, do you accept money from developers? I was at the time the only candidate that said, not only am I not accepting money from developers, I would like to see donations from developers and from all of you done away with. We already have a matching funds program that gives candidates money, so they should make the qualifying process a little bit more difficult and then give those matching funds, which will not increase your taxes. It's a system that's already in place. Give each candidate the same amount of money, even the playing field, and then that way you get representation and you're not paying for it twice. You pay taxes for representation. Why should you pay to get a candidate up here?
I think it's clearly a conflict of interest, and Susan, I completely agree with you that we need publicly financed elections in LA. I mean, this is an incredibly big problem. Developer money has been real estate money writ large. People who seek to profit from our city and from our land use have been the ones who have been the primary contributors to city council races for decades. And I think we can see in front of us what that conflict of interest has resulted in. It's resulted in incredibly high housing costs. It's resulted in buildings that are unattractive and in places where people don't necessarily want them. And part of the reason why there's such an incredible amount of distrust of City Hall around these issues is because City Hall makes decisions around building and land use. So it's an incredible conflict of interest. We've also seen across the state, when this money flows into politics, it is bad for residents. We need to put people over profits. And the only way we can do that is by taking corporate and real estate money out of politics entirely.
I'm glad everyone up here agrees. I did introduce the ban to have individuals only contribute 4.5 years ago, and most recently, where no one would second that. I also introduced legislation for public financing, which is also sitting in the city council as well. The reason why developer contributions are bad is because the true power of the city council is not trimming trees or fixing sidewalks, it's land use. Council members, the city council has the ability to change the underlying zoning of the land that your property sits on. So if your single family home gets rezoned where you can now build a 5-story apartment complex, I just increased your value by 2, 3, 4-fold. That's why you want to be my best friend, and that's why the biggest special interest, that's the problem in city council, is developers. It's not oil, it's not anybody else, it's developers who want to give, which is why I voluntarily said I do not take developer contributions, and I made that into law.
Thank you. All right, we're going to talk about traffic. Charles Mann, or Mark? Sorry, I couldn't read that last name. Talking about traffic congestion, we're all familiar with the problem of the ways and the other shortcuts bringing traffic through our residential neighborhoods. But Joni Dodd Lynch has another traffic-related question. Jerry, I'm sorry, Jerry, it's much more personal.
Can I see that?
Yeah.
Actually? Thank you. We have 100 people die every day in the United States because of traffic violence, which includes distracted driving, drunk driving, reckless driving. In fact, 40,000 people die every year. My 16-year-old son, Connor, was killed on Woodman. He was coming from Notre Dame, going to the Sherman Oaks Park. Recently, I just heard that 2 students from Campbell Hall were killed by drunk drivers this summer. And I could go on. An 80-year-old man was killed in a crosswalk on Riverside in North Hollywood. Nobody has addressed really what is the biggest epidemic and the crisis that we should be talking about, traffic violence. So that we can, our children and our loved ones can walk the streets and drive safely through Sherman Oaks. So I want to know why no one's talking about it and what you guys are going to do about it.
Thank you, Jerry.
Can I start on this one from David at the microphone?
Jerry, I want to thank you for your bravery and your courage even asking that question. And, you know, we've worked throughout the years together for safety. And it is frustrating. It is one of these issues where literally we could solve it overnight if everyone just paid attention, as in the case that happened with your child. And, you know, whether it's texting and driving, whether it's lack of lighting, whether it's turn signals at the wrong places, you know, this is why I support and the City Council supports the Vision Zero plan, so we can reduce traffic fatalities to zero. Because one death that could be preventable is unacceptable. And, you know, it's very hard, you know, and when we talk about Vision Zero, it's about encompassing, and we work with everyone, all different stakeholders, because it's not just about bike lanes or bollards. It's also about enlarging walkways, having hawk signals, traffic signals, crosswalks. It's a whole amalgamation of all these different strategies to make our city safer. But thank you for that question.
If I can mention one thing, Vision Zero, last year we had more fatalities, pedestrian fatalities than the year before. So that's why I'm bringing this up. What can we do differently?
The other day I saw a very troubling comment by, I think it was in the newspaper, and essentially, I think it was somebody in the police was saying that the increase in deaths was because of people texting more and that drivers needed to pay more attention. And to me that was infuriating, because with Vision Zero, with the high injury network streets, we know exactly what needs to be done to keep people safer. These are design changes. These are changes that can happen at intersections. These are engineering interventions that haven't just worked in Los Angeles. They've worked all over the world. We know exactly what needs to be done. And yet year after year, we put out these plans and don't take those actions, because there's pushback from drivers every time people make changes that reduce traffic speeds or that take space away from automobiles. I think pedestrian deaths are not worth that. I mean, I think we absolutely need to make the reduction of pedestrian deaths to zero an absolute priority and do what is laid out in the plans that we already have at City Hall. It just takes political courage to do that.
Jerry, I've never met you before. I think about your son almost every day. I have 4 kids in this city, and I fear for them when they are crossing the street, even when we are walking through a farmer's market. Thinking about my kids crossing the street on their own, going across the street to school, scares me to death. It is not just that Vision Zero is unfunded, it's that we have council members who try to roll back safe streets when we start to remediate. And we have had that situation in this district, where we lost a woman in Silver Lake walking across the road, and the community organized, and they got some of their remediations, and our council members spent $83,000 examining the question of whether it should get pulled out. We have had communities organized all over this district asking for safer streets. And as council member, I will prioritize that, because no one should die in our streets because we refuse to take action to keep them safe.
Before Susan, I think David feels strongly about what you just said and wants to respond briefly.
Right, that is not true. There was no study that was used to pull out safety measures. As a matter of fact, in Silver Lake, we did a comprehensive plan to make sure that we went above and beyond, not just protected bike lanes, but making sure that we have protected crosswalks, more lighting, cutting back of trees, doing everything humanly possible, and working with everybody in the neighborhood, because it wasn't just about the main street, but it was all the cut-through traffic. Everybody speeding through, just trying to make it to work 2 minutes faster. So it wasn't just the major thoroughfares, it was all the neighborhood streets that are being inundated and being attacked in your neighborhood. We're aware of that, and we're working together, and that's why we want to make sure that what happened to Jerry's son doesn't happen.
So one of the things that has always frustrated me about anything in politics or in government is the length of time and the ridiculous hoops jumping that you need to go through to get things done. You know, obviously Ventura Boulevard has been a dangerous area to cross. And recently, we finally got a crosswalk with the flashing lights. Now, you would think, well, that's pretty simple, right? But it is bright, it is visible, and it is simple. It is so simple, and we had to advocate and ask for that for a long time. That is an inexpensive fix, it is a fast fix, and we need to implement those significantly more often. There is no reason that we have won in like all of Sherman Oaks. It's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. It's quick, it's easy, and it's inexpensive, and there's no reason that what happened to your son should ever happen again, and I'm so sorry.
How many departments do you have to go through to get a flashing signal light put in?
About 2.
2? And what's the average length of time it takes?
It depends.
It's not fast. All right.
Well, and an average signal light, just to let you know, could be anywhere from ridiculous. The average signal light could ridiculously be from anywhere from $250,000 to $1.2 million.
Okay, we're going to talk about SB 50.
Yes.
I mean, everybody sort of knows what SB 50 is. Maybe a lot of people know a lot of details. Give us Maria, give us a very brief sort of summary of it, and then ask your question if you would.
Okay, so we know SB 50 is not an affordable housing bill. It is a land speculation bill because it allows increased density in single-family neighborhoods with no setbacks, no open space. It really allows a developer to do whatever they want. So where do you stand on SB 50 type bills, which really would ruin every part of Sherman Oaks and any of the districts we're talking about without adding any units of affordability?
By the way, that's your opinion, your analysis of that SB 50. That's not. Some of us might have a different view.
Committee's opinion.
I know that's reading the bill. I mean, I have to say.
All right, let's start with, who do we want to start with? Sarah? Do you like Sarah or Sarah Kate?
I will go by anything said in my direction. I'm one of 3 children. Say it loud enough, I'll turn. We are having conversations, continual conversations, about action coming down from San Francisco because our city council has not taken action to address our housing crisis here. These bills are going to keep coming, and they're going to keep coming until we make our own plans and we can say, leave us alone, we did it. And I am running because I believe we can make plans to bring affordable housing to this city so that the state will get out of our business. But we have to start making those plans now. We can't just say no to everything, because if we don't make plans, they're gonna come back and we're not gonna have a choice.
Well, there are a lot of plans out there.
So
What
do
we
you
have now is not delivering affordable units to this city.
So do you
And there are
support,
better ways to do it.
SB 50 or no?
I support action in this city that will make that action irrelevant.
So that's a yes.
Doesn't make it irrelevant.
That's a yes or a no?
No.
That's a no?
You said you support SB.
Do you support SB 50?
This version of SB 50 gave us time to say we have a plan, and by negotiating, we could have been like Marin County and gotten carved out. And we didn't negotiate, we dug in our heels. Make a plan, go up there and say we can do it better, and get the same special treatment that other cities got. So
Marin County was given an exception because their population was under, I believe, 600,000. So that happening in Los Angeles is a snowball's chance in hell. The reality is that the creators of that bill all pretty much live in that area. And oddly enough, they're all either the family members or their developers. It is a developer's dream bill. It does not benefit any one of you here. I avidly, I wrote letters, I called, I posted, I talked to Maria, I called anybody I could know and said, stop that. Because just because we're not coming up with something here does not mean that we just hand it over to Sacramento and go, well, then you take care of it for us. And this thing about, well, it would give us 2 years to come up with our own plan. What happens at the end of that 2 years? Then we could submit and then go, nope. At the end of the 2 years, they put through whatever they want. And by the way, it takes about 2 years to get a bill put through anyway. So if we submitted something, it would take 2 years for it to pass, and then they would refuse it and come here and do anything they wanted. No, we need to maintain local control over what happens in our community and in our neighborhoods. End of story.
I didn't support this version of SB 50. And I didn't support it because I think it would not have created the housing that we desperately need here in Los Angeles. We have a 500,000 unit shortage of affordable housing in Los Angeles. 500,000 units. Hundreds of thousands of people pay 90% of their incomes in rent here in LA. That's unacceptable. And unless we can create a plan that can create that kind of housing, which I know we can do locally. So I was telling Jeff before this meeting that in Thai-town, the Thai CDC actually worked with the city council member then, Jackie Goldberg, to put together a plan when the Red Line station was coming there. They put together a plan for their own neighborhood that increased affordable housing, that allowed Thai residents of that neighborhood to stay in that neighborhood, and for local business diversity to stay in that neighborhood, and to allow increased density and more housing. That's the kind of planning we can do across the city, but council members need to invest in that. And that's exactly what I'm committed to doing.
Thank you.
Not only did I oppose SB 50, but I led the charge against SB 50. Woo! The previous version and this version. Because you know why? Sherman Oaks is not San Francisco. Sherman Oaks is not even downtown LA. And what this SB 50 version did, both versions, is it's basically a land grab. It's an opportunity to just make more money. And it failed to have the housing that we need. Affordable housing, moderate income housing for our working families. So not only did I oppose it, I went one step further. I introduced legislation years in advance for moderate income housing, not just affordable, but moderate, people making $40,000 to $80,000. I introduced legislation for right to counsel, introduced legislation for vacancy tax. And you know what? It can work. You know why? The Sunkist development that we work closely together on, they included 10% moderate income housing, and they didn't even have to. They did it because we worked together.
All right, thank you. We're getting close to the closing statements. I had a question that might give our audience some insight into your personalities, into your politics, that might help them decide who to vote for if they haven't already. And if you'd rather not discuss this, this is certainly your option. But tonight in Vegas, there's a Democratic debate. We're in a very tense political time in the country. Would you feel comfortable talking about who you're supporting for president and why? Who wants to start that one? Nithya?
Okay, shh, you guys, let's see what happens here. Shh.
And if you haven't decided, you haven't decided.
Or if you've decided, support your candidate.
It shouldn't be that hard of a question.
I'll answer it.
Susan wants to go first?
I got no problem with that.
No, I have no problem. I'm an unabashed progressive, so I like the two progressive candidates. I like Bernie, I like Warren. Now I think I'm Bernie.
All right, Sarah Kate.
I cannot tell you how many voters want to know who I'm voting for president. It's like coming at us all the time. I think like most people in Los Angeles, we don't quite yet know who our choice is. Our ballots are not going back as fast as they used to. People are holding them, and I'm like one of those people. I don't know. I don't know if it's where my heart is, where my brain is, who can win, or if I just want better politics than I see in front of me. But I have not made up my mind.
So I have not entirely made up my mind either, but I will tell you one thing. People always want to ask, you Democrat or you Republican. I feel that both parties are failing us miserably. I would not admit to being a progressive Democrat. You know why? Because progressive Democrats aren't making any progress. They have gone so far left that frankly they're the opposite side of the coin from the Republicans. Trump and Mitch McConnell do not represent me, but our governor and our mayor also do not represent me. So as of now, the only person that I see that could actually probably beat Donald Trump is Mike Bloomberg. And I know that there are some controversial things about him, but of the other candidates out there, he seems the strongest candidate, and he's not insane. So, we've got that going for us.
David.
I was a proud and early supporter for our United States Senator Kamala Harris. I thought she was not only qualified for the job, but she would have broken so many barriers that we were asking for. Unfortunately, she dropped out, and now I am, like you, very confused. I want to make sure that we win. I want to make sure that the Democratic candidate wins.
Yes.
And beats Trump. Now, you got to stop watching TV because no matter who you listen to, they make sense that this person could win and that person can win. So I am for the candidate who is going to come out of our Democratic primary, and I will support that candidate, whoever he or she is, 150%. But I got to tell you, I did get to catch the debate for the first 15 minutes because I was so curious because Bloomberg was on stage for the first time, and I just listened to the first 15 minutes. So I don't know what happened the rest of the debate because I had to come here. But I got to say, Pete Buttigieg, wow. At least the first 15 minutes. I don't know what happened later on, but wow. But then again, it's about who could beat Trump.
Right. Exactly.
You had something that All right. So thank you very much for that. That question wasn't planned, but thanks for answering it.
Phil, before you finish, you're going to the last question, right? They're all there.
Yeah.
Okay. So folks, the closing statement's going to happen now, and then the candidates have all assured us that they're going to stick around. They're going to kind of spread out a little bit, so you can come to them and ask them your question if it wasn't asked. And they'll be here till like 11 or 12 o'clock. And also, you guys, this is very important. Please clean up your garbage, because if not, then Jules, who's 105 last week, he has to clean up. So please put your garbage away. Okay, no, not yet. You guys sit down. They have their closing statements. You guys are all excited about cleaning up. You can go on Control Boulevard.
All right, so we're going to closing statements are supposed to be theoretically 90 seconds each. Thank all of you for being here, and I admire your courage being in the front, because it's easy to sit on the sideline and complain. All right, so we'll do this very unscientifically. I have 4 pieces of paper with 4 numbers on it. Pick a number. Who's number 1?
I got number 1.
All right.
4 for 4.
There you go.
So Jerry, when you brought up your son, that knocked me back because I'm a mom too. And I'm a mom of 4 kids in this city. And because I am a mother of 4 kids, I can no longer slow boat on all of these issues that are facing our communities. I need a city that is affordable for me now and affordable for my children when they grow up. I need a city where our streets are safe, where they're not choked in traffic, and where my kids can breathe our air. I need a city with parks and trees that make our communities safer, that make our lives more pleasant, and actually make our communities safer and extend our lives. I'm not running for this seat to go to City Hall and make 15-0 votes. I am not running for this seat to go to City Hall and make short-term plays and cynical votes that sound good to you now but leave us in long-term pain down the road. I am running for this seat because I moved to this district 20 years ago. I rented my first apartment here. I bought my house here. I fell in love with my husband here. We decided to raise our children here. And I have shown up every single day for 18 months on this campaign. In the living rooms, at the coffee shop, saying, come, talk to me about what you need, what you want your city to do for you, and I will show up and fight and do it. Our office is here in Sherman Oaks. Come visit us, come tell me your story, let me figure out how we will go to the city and help. Thank you very much.
So I think that all of us here will agree that homelessness is a crisis. But if you're the odd one out that happens to think that how it's being handled is a good thing, with a 53% increase of people living on our streets and dying on our streets, then I'm gonna be honest, any one of these three candidates is probably a better choice than I am. And the reason is because one of them helped create this mess, and the other two want to turn our parks and our parking lots into encampments and triage centers by implementing more plans of dependency rather than accountability. I have a 7-point plan that ensures people will get the targeted care that they need, while at the same time ensuring that our community, your community's safety and security is restored. Right now, it is more important than ever that Sherman Oaks have a local resident on the council, because Sherman Oaks has more at stake than any other area in the city. We have planes over our head day and night. We have constant traffic gridlock, and every solution that the city puts forth makes it worse. We have a monorail that is being proposed that will literally eject people from their homes and ruin our wildlife corridor. And by the way, all of this happened on our current councilman's watch. I know how those planes need to be rerouted because I turned up at the meetings. I know that our parks are not meant to be encampments, and I have a plan to fix that. For the other areas of District 4, I need you to know that I know what it's like to not feel to feel overlooked and ignored, and I will never let you feel that way. My promise to everyone in every area of this district is that I will be your partner, I will be your advocate, and that my vote on City Council will always mirror the views of my community. Thank you.
I want to end tonight by thanking you again for letting me be here and to articulate my views. I also wanted to talk to you a little bit about what we've done in this campaign, because I'm very proud of what we've built over the last 6 months. We have brought a group of people together in our campaign that has knocked on more doors in this district than in any city council campaign in history. And the reason we've done that is because we want everyone to take part in municipal governance. I believe that our city has the power to make incredible positive change for our residents. I know we can end homelessness. I know we can reduce housing costs. I know we can build affordable housing. I know we can clean our air. I know we can improve traffic. We can do all of that, but we can only do it if we come together. And in the campaign that we've built, I'm very proud that we've actually inspired so many more people than have ever been engaged with municipal politics here in Los Angeles. We've had historically low voter turnout to actually come out and knock on doors. We've had hundreds of volunteers come out and canvass for us every weekend. Some of them have knocked on your doors, I'm sure. And it's been very exciting. And I just wanted to say today that we're at a turning point in Los Angeles. We're at a moment where we can make incredible positive change in this city. And I wanted to invite all of you to join me, my campaign team, all of the volunteers who are inspired by this moment and what it can mean for Los Angeles, and join our movement. Thank you so much.
When it comes to homelessness, I know you're frustrated. So am I. And I know the situation looks bleak, but I see light at the end of the tunnel. But that's how we're going to solve it. Because you know what? Even though the situation looks bleak, I see light at the end of the tunnel because 4.5 years ago, no one wanted to talk about homelessness. 10 years ago, people said, arrest them, get them out of my face. Things have changed now. Now people are saying, Councilmember, I don't want to call LAPD, I don't want to arrest them. What can I do to help? That's how we're going to change homelessness. It's about working together. And I know you heard so many ideas here, but talk is cheap. Everything that was said here is correct. It's about the first prong, building housing for our unhoused neighbors. Second prong, preventing homelessness in the first place. We spend so much time on getting people off the streets. It's about making sure we stop the bleeding by affordable housing, more moderate income housing, vacancy tax, you name it. And prong 3, changing mental health law, where I partner with the county to change the state law so we can help those who are the sickest among us. The highest end utilizers going in and out of jail, in and out of our emergency rooms with 1 to 3 years life expectancy. That's how we're gonna change, that's how we're gonna solve homelessness, but the problem is it's not happening fast enough, which is why I need your help to put on the ballot this November to allow the city to have a crisis-like response, have a FEMA-like response, so we can solve this crisis together. Because homelessness is not just a mental health issue or a housing issue, homelessness is a poverty issue.
Thank you very much. And I want to thank the candidates, also Phil Schuman for our youth moderator, and the assistant So, make sure you vote. The candidates are here to answer your specific questions. Please clean up. See you the third Wednesday of next month. Thank you.